Okay, let's talk about one of the most overlooked items in the entire grocery store, the humble cabbage. It's so easy to just walk right by it. But what if I told you it holds some incredible secrets about human history, about agricultural science, and even world records? Stick around, because you're about to see this simple vegetable in a completely new light.
All right, first things first, let's just completely shatter the myth that cabbage is boring. What you're looking at right here is the Guinness World Record for the heaviest cabbage ever grown. It weighed in at a mind-boggling 62.7 kilograms. That's over 138 pounds. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than a Great Dane. This isn't just a big vegetable. It's a sign that we're really just scratching the surface of its story.
So, how in the world do we get from a regular vegetable to a world record holder? Well, to understand that, we need to peel back the layers, and yeah, I mean that literally, and start with what a cabbage actually is. So, on a technical level, cabbage is known as Brassica oleracea. Now, here's a neat little piece of trivia for you. Out in the wild, it's a biennial plant, which means it takes 2 whole years to complete its life cycle. But farmers, they harvest it after just 1 year. And why is that? Well, because that's when we get that dense, leafy, perfect head that we all know and love.
Of course, the cabbages we buy at the store aren't quite that massive. The ones you're putting in your shopping cart usually weigh somewhere between half a kilo and 4 kilos, so, about 1 to 8 pounds. And you're most likely grabbing one of the 2 most common types, the familiar smooth-leafed green or that vibrant red variety. But this is where the story gets really interesting.
You see, the simple green and red cabbages we know are just the beginning. The cabbage isn't some lonely vegetable. It's actually the head of a huge and, frankly, very surprising family tree.
So, take a look at these. You've got broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and kale. I mean, they look different, they taste different, and we cook them in completely different ways. But what if I told you they all share a pretty shocking secret?
The answer is honestly kind of mind-blowing. They aren't just related like cousins, they are all, botanically speaking, the exact same species. They're all just different cultivars of Brassica oleracea. The best way to think about it is like dog breeds, right? A Chihuahua and a Great Dane look totally different, but they're both the same species, Canis familiaris. Well, this is the plant version of that.
So how is that even possible? It's a fantastic story of human ingenuity. Over thousands of years, farmers basically acted like artists. They selectively bred the original wild cabbage for different traits. If they wanted bigger leaves, boom, they got cabbage. When they favored the flower buds, they created broccoli and cauliflower. And when they focused on those tiny little buds along the stem, they ended up with Brussels sprouts. It's a stunning example of man-made evolution, right on your dinner plate. So from its humble origins as a wild plant, the cabbage embarked on this epic journey across time and across continents, and its history is deeply, deeply intertwined with our own. The cabbage's journey through history is really a story of changing fortunes. It started out in Europe before 1000 BC, and by the time of the Roman Empire, it was actually considered a luxury food. But its reputation shifted. In the Middle Ages, its toughness and its ability to grow almost anywhere made it an absolute lifeline for the poor. Then, in the Age of Sail, sailors like Captain Cook packed their ships with it because they knew its vitamin C could fend off the deadly disease scurvy. And finally, in the 1540s, the French explorer Jacques Cartier brought it to the Americas, completing its global conquest.
And this quote from a 15th century Parisian journal, it really drives home just how vital this vegetable was. During lean times, for so many people, cabbage wasn't just part of the meal, it was the meal. It was, quite literally, a symbol of survival.
Okay, so that brings us to the modern era, where the cabbage has become a true agricultural giant and a cornerstone of cuisines all over the world.
The scale of modern cabbage production is actually pretty hard to wrap your head around. In 2023 alone, the world grew 74 million tons of it. Just to put that in perspective, that's the weight of over 700 aircraft carriers. And China is the undisputed king of cabbage, producing nearly half of the entire global supply. Just amazing. So who's eating all this cabbage? Well, while it's popular all over the world, some countries are true fanatics. In Russia, the average person eats an incredible 20 kilograms, or about 44 pounds of cabbage every single year. That's more than any other nation on Earth, which really highlights just how central it is to their culinary culture.
And what makes cabbage a global superstar is its incredible versatility. I mean, on one hand, you can slice it up thin and eat it raw for a fresh, crunchy coleslaw. But on the other hand, you can use the ancient technique of fermentation to transform it into two of the world's most iconic preserved foods, sauerkraut in Europe and that spicy, complex kimchi in Korea. Two completely different experiences from the very same vegetable.
And why do we eat so much of it? Well, besides the taste, it's a nutritional powerhouse. For very few calories, you get a massive dose of vitamin K and vitamin C, plus a really healthy amount of fiber. It's simple, it's cheap, and it's incredibly good for you.
But of course, the story isn't all perfect. No, the cabbage has its challenges, from pests out in the field to some, let's say, memorable characteristics in the kitchen.
We've all been there. That unmistakable, pungent smell of overcooked cabbage that can just fill an entire house. Well, there's a simple scientific reason for this. You see, cabbage contains sulfur compounds. When you cook it for too long, these compounds break down and they release hydrogen sulfide gas, which is the exact same stuff that gives rotten eggs their lovely aroma. So the lesson here? A quick cook is a good cook.
And before it even gets to your kitchen, that cabbage has to survive what is basically a war zone. Out in the field, farmers are in a constant battle against a whole horde of enemies. Cabbage maggots attack the roots, caterpillars devour the leaves, and then you have these invisible threats like club root disease and black rot bacteria that can wipe out an entire crop. Getting that perfect head of cabbage to the grocery store is a real victory.
And finally, the elephant in the room. Why can cabbage, make you gassy? It all comes down to a special kind of sugar called raffinose that our small intestine just can't digest. So instead, the bacteria in our large intestine do all the work, and gas is the byproduct. It's really just simple biology.
So after all that, I'll just leave you with this question. The next time you walk past a simple head of cabbage in the store, are you just going to see a vegetable? Or will you see what's really there? A world-traveling, family-founding, record-breaking survivor that has shaped our history and our plates for thousands of years.